Hey, Yolanda.
Hey, Orhan. You know what I thought about the fall? I thought I should cake a giant acorn.
I still think of a rapper when you say acorn.
Yeah, so once again, it's an acorn, not acon. To make my giant acorn cake, I am baking 10¼ pounds of my chocolate cake. I baked 3 7-inch round cakes and 1 9-inch round cake. And now that they're baked, cooled, and chilled, I've removed them from their pans and I'm gonna begin to level and layer them. However, I'm only gonna level 2 of the smaller round cakes. One of them I'm going to layer with the hump still on. And then for my biggest round cake, I'm leaving on the hump, I'm not layering it, and I'm gonna begin to round out the sides. From now on, I'm gonna refer to the acorn in 2 parts. There's kind of like the body of the acorn, and then there's the cap. Like an acorn looks like it's wearing a beret almost. You know what I mean? It's definitely a fall nut. Is it actually a nut? Let's not get into it.
Let's not get into it.
Let's not get into this. So for the bigger round cake, hump is on, not layering it, and then I'm going to round out the edges. I'm doing this on the top edge all around and the bottom edge all around. Now I'm actually going to add a hump from one of my smaller cakes and carve it down until I get the shape I want. My 3 smaller cakes, I'm going to stack them all one on top of the other. So I have the layers of the 2 cakes that I leveled, and then I'm gonna put the layers of the last cake that I didn't level. So now I have this little, just show the footage, because this is, what I want is like a little bit of a pointy top, and I still want it to remain round, but I need to taper it a bit at the top. You know how acorns are just like everywhere at one point and then they're gone?
Yeah, I think.
You think? I feel like the squirrels like go to battle for all the acorns and then they're just gone. Squirrels are so, like they only have 2 moods. They're either like completely frantic or they're statuesque. You know how many times I'll see a squirrel and I'll think it's like a squirrel statue because they're so still, or they're freaking out. They're very like up the tree, like they're crazy.
They're crazy.
I've never seen a squirrel just like casually walk down the sidewalk, never seen it. Now it's time to simple syrup all the layers of cake and all the parts of cake. And I'm also gonna make a hazelnut frosting, which is basically my peanut butter frosting, which is already delicious, but I'm gonna swap out the peanut butter for hazelnut butter.
Isn't there an acorn spread or something?
No.
Isn't there?
Yes, Orhan, we've all secretly been eating acorn butter. You haven't had acorn butter? If we could eat acorns, we'd see acorn food everywhere. We're in Canada, there's acorns everywhere. Here's something Chinggis and I agree on. We both enjoyed the hazelnut frosting more than peanut butter frosting. It's really easy to make. There's only 4 ingredients, which are butter, hazelnut butter, icing sugar, and whipping cream. And what's really easy about frosting as well is you can always alter the consistency at the last moment. So it's not as hard to make as buttercream where something could go entirely wrong. If you finish your frosting and you feel like, you know what, it's a little lighter or a little too soft for my liking, then you can just sift in more icing sugar. And vice versa, if it's a little too stiff, you can pour in a few more drops of cream to loosen it up. You know what's next. I've got to fill and stack these cakes with the hazelnut frosting. I'm going to build that same shape of the body back up, 1 layer at a time, spreading an even layer of hazelnut frosting. In this case, for this cake, I did want my frosting to be on the stiffer side because with any novelty cake, structure matters. So I'm spreading this frosting, another layer of cake, building it all the way up. Now, remember how I added the little hump to the cap part of the acorn? I'm just gonna spread a little frosting in between the hump and the cake to make sure that stays in place. But I'm not gonna crumb coat in the frosting. I'm going to crumb coat both parts of this cake in chocolate ganache. I can't even tell you how good it smelled. So both parts are crumb coated in ganache. I'm putting them in the fridge to chill. Once it's chilled, I'm going to ice both parts in ganache and I'm going to use my invention, which I didn't really invent and is a square of acetate, to help me ice the cake, especially the cap. Now that I'm happy with both parts, I'm gonna place them back in the fridge to chill, and I'm gonna get ready to roll out some fondant. There's gonna be a lot of chocolate fondant in this kitchen today. What I love about using chocolate fondant is it makes total sense because I need brown fondant, right? So why would I just take white fondant and dye it brown when they make chocolate fondant, which is already brown and tastes better?
Yes, for those of you who don't think fondant tastes good, chocolate fondant tastes amazing.
Chocolate fondant tastes good. Oh, this cake was really good. So I rolled out my fondant. I'm gonna roll it nice and thin and then drape it over the body of my cake. And now I'm gonna carefully smooth it all around. You wanna press the air down and out to avoid any air bubbles being trapped. And then you're gonna smooth it all the way around the cake and trim away the excess at the bottom. Now I'm going to cover the cap portion of this cake. Same idea, you wanna measure, roll your fondant, drape it over and smooth. But in this case, I need to make sure that I tuck the fondant underneath because we're gonna see a little bit of the bottom of this cap when I put the acorn together. And then I'm trimming the excess underneath. Now it's time to texture both these cakes. For the body, I'm going to use a couple of strip cutters, but I'm not cutting the cake. In this case, I just wanna carefully drag it up the fondant because acorns kind of look, I don't even know how to describe it. They have like a vertical texture on the body of the acorn. This is the problem, you've never studied an acorn. You know why? Because squirrels take them all right away and bury them.
And now I'm imagining you like chasing a bunch of squirrels so you can get some acorns.
Yes.
So you can make this video.
You're right, I should have chased squirrels for acorns.
Yeah.
I should have done what I needed to do, but they scare me.
Do you know a show called Rick and Morty?
No.
It's this like scientist and his grandson going on to adventures, and in there, squirrels are these agents. Like they shape the fate of our planet.
That's probably why they're so frantic. They're carrying a ton of worry, right? Now for the cap of the fondant, I'm gonna use an entirely different method because the cap kind of looks like the Game of Thrones eggs.
Oh, dragon shells. It
Yeah.
looks like dragon shells.
The
It
dragon
looks like
shells. Yeah, and it also reminded me of when I made the porg cake for Star Wars. And I kept cutting all the hair with little scissors. But in this case, I'm going to use a couple of gum paste leaf cutters that I have, and I'm going to press them into my fondant all the way around, and then I'm going to use a sculpting tool to carefully sort of lift each end of the leaf. I'm not fully cutting out a leaf, but I am texturing the fondant and lifting it up a bit at the bottom. At the base, I started with a thinner leaf cutter, and then when I moved up, I moved on to like a bit of a wider cutter. So I'm gonna do this all the way around, all the way to the top. So after I did all of that, I once again flipped my cake over and made sure to do it around the bottom, switching back to the thinner leaf cutter. The other thing I need to do is make a stem. We have something to add to the stem nub collection. I'm very happy. So what I did was I'm using some more of my chocolate fondant. I dyed it a bit darker, and then I rolled it into a thick cord. I brushed some clear piping gel onto a wooden dowel, and then I pierced the wooden dowel through the cord of fondant. To texture the stem, the first thing I'm going to do is actually just sort of squeeze it in my hand. And then I'm gonna use a sculpting tool and run it lengthwise up the stem. How do I describe this? Let's just show the footage. I'm just using the sculpting tool to make more lines in the stem. There's one tool that I always use in every nub and stem, and it is my grass piping tip. It's like the piping tip that people typically use to pipe grass or hair, and all I do is just press it down into the top of the stem. It's time to paint this cake. I need to paint all of the parts of the cake. I'm using brown gel food coloring and of course clear food grade alcohol. I'm gonna mix it together, and the first part I'm painting is the body of the acorn. I'm just gonna paint this brown paint all the way up the body. I'm gonna make sure to run my brush up and down, going along with the texture. And then once I've painted all around the whole thing, I wanna go in with a smaller, pointier brush and some undiluted brown gel color. And I'm just gonna add a few darker lines. Again, making sure to paint vertically up the cake, and then I'm gonna go back to my larger brush and blend them in. Always making sure to brush up and down. And you know what I thought about after this episode? I thought we could have made 2 episodes in one. I should have painted the whole thing gold, and we could have made it like a Christmas ornament episode. Guys, What were we thinking? I have a lot of good ideas after the fact. I do this a lot. I'm also gonna paint the cap of the cake in the same brown paint. So I'm painting the entire surface of the cap, making sure to paint within the texture, all of that. Now I wanna let it dry just a little bit. And the next thing I'm going to do is use some fog gel food coloring. I know it's such a weird name. And the reason I'm doing this is when acorns dry out, the top surface of them start to kind of look white and chalky. I don't know why, I don't know what this has to do with its process, lifespan, I have no idea. Again, the squirrels take all the acorns. I haven't been able to study them. Yeah, if somebody is monitoring my Google search history, they are perplexed. They're like, 1 minute she's looking up lobsters, then green versus brown acorns, then crab faces. Then when will Beyonce drop the next Ivy Park collection? Back pain. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Are squirrels secret agents? That's my next Google search. I painted the whole cap, we're onto the fog. And what I wanna do is use a smaller brush, and then I wanna have a dry brush ready. And I'm just gonna dab this fog gel color onto the tips of each one of those little leaf impressions, and then go back with the dry brush and stipple it to sort of blend it in. And I'm gonna do this all the way around the whole cake. I'm leaving the stem on the cake dummy upright, and I'm gonna paint the entire length with some brown food coloring. And then in the top of the stem, again, I'm gonna stipple on some of that fog because it looks like it's dried out. It's time to assemble this cake. I procrastinated for a bit. I'm a bit worried because I wanted the acorn to look like they look when they're on the ground, you know, before the squirrels steal them all. And so in theory, it should work out, but this is really just a cake, right? So gravity is still naturally pulling it. I decided what I was gonna do is I'm gonna use a dowel just to hold the two pieces together and some ganache, and then I'm just gonna pray. That's what I'm going for here. Then I'm gonna carefully lift the cap of my acorn, put it on and push. Why am I doing this? Push it onto the acorn. So now I've added the top of the acorn. It's time to add the stem. So I'm carefully inserting it into the cap, making sure that the top of it rests on the board. And now I'm happy. You know what else fall is? It's time for a sale. So we're combining two great sales with our Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. Did I say sale? From November 23rd to 30th, you'll get up to 30% off site-wide. Stock up on baking tools, bundles, sprinkles, whatever you need. The holidays are coming and we want you to be ready. Click the corner to shop. Can't get enough cake? You know where to head. Head northwest. Wait, never eat shredded wheat. Yes. That's how I remember.